Thank you so much for the opening remarks and the warm welcome. I love working with the Japan country. I previously was at Elastic, where I visited Japan regularly. This is my first time visiting Japan as a product leader for ClickHouse, but I hope that as we continue investments in our region, these visits will become regular. And I hope that many of you that are users and future customers will work with me and my team on various initiatives in user councils and so on. Actually, the reason I'm here in the summer is I was visiting Japan with my family. My daughter, who was 12, visited Japan for the first time. She loved it. She absolutely loved Tokyo in particular because of fashion and so many places to shop. And she wanted to stay in Tokyo, but our plan was to go to Kyoto, and then Sapporo, and then Okinawa. So we spent 2 weeks visiting Japan, and it was wonderful. Lots of very good food and very amazing things to see. So thank you very much. Today, I will be covering updates from OpenHouse. OpenHouse is our first user conference that we held this May in San Francisco. And we plan to take this conference on the road. We hope to have our Tokyo open house sometime later this year or beginning of next year. But for now, I will summarize company update and product updates from open house. And if we have time, I'll answer questions. Maybe a little bit about my role. It's an unusual title, Vice President of Product and Marketing. What does that mean? My background is quite technical. I studied computer science, and I became a product leader. At Elastic, I was responsible for logging and observability product line. At ClickHouse, I'm head of product. But we quickly realized that combining product and marketing at a technical company has many benefits. So I took on responsibility for both. And actually, in planning this event, it became very clear why it's important. How you build the product and how you talk about it should be unified. And this event was actually a good milestone to have this joint leadership of both functions. So maybe really quickly, for some reason it's not advancing on the, So I see it advance here, but not there. It's not working. The slides are not advancing over there. It's just very slow. Very slow. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll continue to work better. First, I want to give an update on ClickHouse as a company. For those of you maybe that are less familiar with the ClickHouse company, we're growing. We're growing very fast. When I joined the company 3.5 years ago, we were only 40 people, primarily in EMEA and North America. Now we are a global company across 18 countries and all continents, including, of course, in Japan. All right. Now we can see the slides again. These are our 3 founders. Aaron Katz and I worked very closely together at Elastic. Both of us spent 7 years there. He was Chief Revenue Officer for Elastic, and before then he was at Salesforce. And with both companies, he excelled in enterprise sales, and now he's leading all of our efforts. Alexey Milovidov is the creator of ClickHouse. He is our CTO. He will be here in September. And so for those of you that are power users of ClickHouse, I'm sure he would like to meet with you and hear your feedback on the technology. And Yuri Zalewski is our president of product and engineering, and he has experience in particular building large-scale cloud environments. And you'll see why that's important in a minute when we talk about our cloud offering. And for some reason, again, slides take a long time to advance. So I advanced the slides. I will start talking. There we go. And it's okay. We'll just be patient with the slides. This is the timeline of our company. You can see the technology itself was built starting in 2009, and open sourced in 2016. And starting in 2016, I was still at Elastic. Shortly after it was open source, I started seeing ClickHouse coming up in conversations. Companies like eBay and Uber and Cloudflare have large amounts of data. These are technology companies. Started telling me about ClickHouse and asking if I've heard of it, and I haven't at the time. I went and I searched, and I realized that it's a columnar store. And the reason Elastic users were interested in ClickHouse is because a lot of the data that we're storing in Elasticsearch were actually quite structured. And as it turned out, storing it in ClickHouse was a lot more efficient because ClickHouse from the very beginning was built for very efficient storage of structured data. So a lot of my customers started moving to ClickHouse for structured analytics. And in 2021, when the company was formed, Aaron asked me to come lead the product efforts. And it did not take me long to decide. I knew that this technology had many applications across not only observability use cases, but many other use cases which I will cover today. Now, in 2025, you see that we've come a long way. We have raised sufficient funds to advance the company from a commercial perspective. We've had 3 rounds of funding, most recently in May 2025. Hopefully the slides come back. All right, there we are. And here you also see that we have invested in ClickHouse commercial offerings on top of all 3 cloud providers. And I'll talk about our offerings in a minute. All right, maybe I should speed up. ClickHouse is quite popular as an open source project. For those of you that are using it today, quite possibly, if you've used it for a number of years, you're familiar with our open source offering. And it's growing very fast by any metric out there. Part of the reason here actually is AI. We're seeing a lot of companies starting to use ClickHouse for AI projects and to help with projects around AI startups. And this is really accelerating the growth of the project. Our commercial success is also something that we're quite happy with. We're seeing customers sign on continuously, and you will recognize many of these logos. OpenAI, of course, needs no introduction. They recently spoke at our user conference about their large-scale migration from Datadog to ClickHouse for observability. Meta, the company behind Facebook, is using ClickHouse for analytics around several projects. And Anthropic, another AI company, talked about migration from Splunk, also an observability use case, and a bit of a security use case. It's a joint use case in one deployment. Tesla, a car company, spoke about several projects. One of them is large-scale metrics analytics, including product telemetry, which made me very happy. I'm a Tesla driver, and it's good to know that ClickHouse is helping the company I rely on be more efficient and provide better customer service. Many other companies that you see here, security companies, ride-sharing companies, media companies, have adopted ClickHouse and have become commercial customers. We have focused on growing our service across many regions, and I'm happy to say that we, at this point, support all 3 cloud providers in Japan. We have a public region in AWS, we have a private region in GCP, and a private region in Azure. And of course, as we invest in the Japan region, we plan to take all of these regions public. But for now, if you have an interest in either GCP or Azure, you can reach out to our team, and we can work with you on the project until we fully make those regions accessible to anyone. We also have support across the globe. So it doesn't matter where you have operations, we can support your workloads. One thing I wanted to talk about, so our commercial strategy, as I mentioned, is very much based on providing a good cloud offering. Our open source technology is compatible with our cloud from a functional perspective. Cloud provides operational benefits, of course, but also a differentiated architecture to make sure that you can more flexibly scale your compute versus your storage. The open source deployment is a shared nothing architecture. The storage and compute is combined. And if you're familiar with Elastic, that is a typical architecture Elasticsearch clusters run with. With ClickHouse, this architecture is more similar to a data warehouse. We sometimes call it a real-time data warehouse. We've taken the architecture that's become popular in Snowflake, in Databricks, in Redshift, in BigQuery, but we made it compatible with the real-time performance that ClickHouse focuses on. And as a result of this, we also are able to provide our commercial users with benefits like full write versus read isolation, as well as isolation of read workloads. This is all GA in our cloud offering. I probably don't need to tell you about the other benefits, operational benefits of using managed services. They're well understood. We manage ingest, we manage upgrades, we manage automatic scaling. So we provide a lot of backups, reliability. So all of that is understood. And these benefits add up to a much more efficient cost of ownership in ClickHouse. But you always have the comfort that open source is there. And if you're a company or a technologist that prefers to manage your software, of course, that option is always available. And some of our users are hybrid. They prefer some use cases in open source and some in cloud, and you have that benefit with ClickHouse. One thing I also wanted to mention, I'm sure a lot of folks here work for organizations that have data privacy requirements. And we provide an option called Bring Your Own Cloud, where even if you are a cloud customer of us, the data can stay in your account, in your cloud account. So for instance, if you are a customer of AWS or GCP, and you currently have your data stored in your environment, it doesn't have to move into our environment. We can manage the data in your storage buckets as well as in your compute and provide the same level of service that we provide for a fully managed deployment. So this Bring Your Own Cloud option is currently available in AWS. It's going to be available very soon in GCP, and then Azure will follow next year. I don't have a slide for this, but I will also mention for this audience, we do have a concept of ClickHouse Private. It's a deployment option that goes even beyond BYOC to provide a fully air-gapped solution. Anthropic talked about this deployment mode. This is what they use. Their security rules are so strict that no connection is possible from their data centers to external world. That is okay. We can still provide a private cloud under those conditions as well. There are, of course, some additional operational steps that the customer has to work with us on, but it's still possible. Okay. Ecosystem. We realize that databases and data services do not exist by themselves. They have to be compatible with many tools out there, both for data ingestion and for data visualization. So our goal is to be as compatible as possible with these solutions. We have a separate integrations team that works on ecosystem compatibility. And you see here a number of logos. Of course, it's not a full list. If you go to our integrations page, there are dozens and dozens of technologies and vendors that we're compatible with, and that list is growing every day based on our customer needs. In our cloud, we provide a managed offering called ClickPipes for very easy data ingestion, for instance, from Kafka. We can be a Kafka consumer. You don't have to manage your own infrastructure. So we try to make these deployments even easier in cloud, but all of our integrations are available for open source users as well. Okay. So let me quickly talk about key use cases for ClickHouse, because quite possibly if you're using the technology today, you may use it in one use case and may not even realize that there are other users that have adopted it for another use case. This is the power of open source. This is why I love working with open source technologists, because you never know what the community is going to start doing with your solution. And so this is pretty exciting for me, because a lot of innovation happens because of you, our users. ClickHouse was originally built for what we call real-time analytics. The name ClickHouse actually means clickstream data warehouse. It's web analytics, clickstream. You come to a website, click, 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 it's a stream. You put it in ClickHouse to understand, for instance, what are the paths your users are taking through your website. It's similar to Google Analytics or Omniture or solutions like that. That's the use case for which this technology was built. But it's useful for other event data as well. So very quickly, it became adopted by ad tech companies, product analytics companies, marketing companies, sales companies. Pretty much every industry out there is building new products that is powered by event data. This is why ClickHouse became so powerful. I don't have detailed slides on every use case. Instead, right now, I'm going to talk about investments and announcements we made at OpenHouse around each use case. For this particular use case, one trend that we noticed across all the companies that we work with is that ClickHouse is often combined as an analytical database with a transactional database. You might be using MySQL or Postgres or Oracle or SQL Server as a transactional row store database. But when you need an analytical database, how do you combine the two? How do you sync data between the two? As it turns out, this is a common challenge our users faced. When we had our first user council in New York, all of our customers have said, this is one challenge we have. ClickHouse is great, but how do we connect it to our transactional database. It's a big toil for us. We have to manage this process ourselves. We have to sync data back and forth, and it's quite challenging for us. We can do it, but it makes us less efficient. So we listen to our customers and we invest in a change data capture technology. We actually bought a company that specializes in this. Turns out it's a difficult problem to solve. It's not simple to build a production-ready, fast, and reliable CDC, or change data capture. We now have a Postgres-based CDC. It's available in both open source and cloud. In cloud, of course, it's fully managed. In open source, you can run this process yourself. It's based on an open source technology called PeerDB. It's a project you can look up. It's now fully GA in our cloud for fully managed users. And we're investing in building next MySQL CDC, MongoDB CDC, and who knows what else. It depends on what you need. If customers who meet with me tell me, next you should do Oracle, we'll probably do Oracle. So come after the meetup and tell me what needs you have, and maybe based on that we will use that for our next decision. For instance, at lunch today I heard that I should build a connector to BigQuery because some customers want to use BigQuery and ClickHouse together. Okay, we could do that. That's something that is possible with this technology. Another investment we're making, it's actually across use cases. It's useful here, it's useful in other places, is native support for JSON. Of course, if you're familiar with Elasticsearch or MongoDB, these are JSON stores. You can take JSON objects and just natively push them at these data stores. You don't have to define the schema. The data store figures out how to store your JSON and query it. Prior to a native JSON data type, you had to define the schema in ClickHouse. You had to figure out how to parse your JSON. It's quite efficient, and we still recommend it for most performance-sensitive use cases. Or if you don't want to store all of your JSON, it's useful to parse it and to figure out some aspects of it. But if that's not possible because your data is unpredictable, we now have a native JSON data type where you can use us just like you use Elasticsearch or Mongo, just store the data in there. We figure it out for you. We didn't only build it, we benchmarked it. And you can see here, we're actually more efficient and faster than even Elasticsearch, which is a leader in JSON data for many years in terms of JSON processing. So we wanted to make sure that we don't just do it, but we do it very well. So this is now GA production ready, both in open source and our cloud. We're also investing in faster updates. So again, a little bit of background. For analytical data stores, the data itself is stored immutably. This is necessary to be able to sustain very high ingest speeds. And in the background, we merge and optimize this data. So as you might imagine, the update process is a pretty heavy process for something like that. If you need to rewrite your data every time you update a row, that's quite heavy. What we're doing now is we're introducing a process where we have something called a patch part, where the update itself is stored logically and resolved upon query. So there's a little bit of impact to search latency, but not a big one. And then we merge it more efficiently in the background. Here, we've been able to achieve 22x faster update rates and very minimal impact to search latency. The details were described at OpenHouse, and that presentation was recorded if you're interested in how we were able to do this at a database level. This feature is coming soon because it's not yet fully production ready. It's actually now available in open source in experimental form. So if you're an open source user, you can use it in our latest release. And as we make it production ready, we will mark it GA and we will release it to all of our users in the cloud offering. Okay, so this is real-time analytics. This is using ClickHouse as a database in your SaaS offering. What about other use cases? My previous role at Elastic was around observability. Because ClickHouse is such a powerful store for structured data, it became widely adopted in companies that were building their own observability stacks. And we've noticed that, of course, and just to give you an example of companies that have adopted ClickHouse for observability, they all don't all fit on one slide. I already mentioned some of them. eBay was one of our early users. They came to me, I still remember, they came to me, Vijay, he's a frequent speaker at KubeCon and other conferences, and he was the one who asked me about ClickHouse for the first time. You see here other users, OpenAI, Sony, well, I mean, the list goes on. It's a wall of logos. And the reason these companies have been adopting ClickHouse is because observability data is never ending. More and more projects require access to this data, not only for DevOps, but also for data science. More and more companies want to leverage this data for projects outside of only providing monitoring and alerting. They want to leverage it for business analytics as well. So more and more companies want to control access and retention for their observability data. As I mentioned, ClickHouse makes a good base for observability for many reasons. It's extremely space efficient. Compression ratios are crazy here. So Elastic, if you're familiar with Elastic, it doesn't actually compress your data. It blows it up, right? Like it indexes it very aggressively. It adds all this metadata because it's built for search. It's built for certain use cases where that's necessary. But you often don't need that for observability. So ClickHouse actually compresses your data significantly. And now it provides other capabilities like full JSON support. So it's a great format, especially for structured data, but not only. I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's just a data store. All of these early users had to build a lot of things around it. They had to build their own data ingest. They had to build their own UI. It's not every shop that can do that. So after we really talked with our users, we realized we need to provide a stack. We need to provide a full solution for observability. So we acquired a company that actually we met at one of the trade shows, KubeCon. This was a company that realized there's a big market opportunity behind ClickHouse as the main data store for logs, traces, metrics, session data. The company is HyperDX, and they built a very open and modern stack on ClickHouse for observability. They used OpenTelemetry as the way to ship data. This is a standard CNCF project that's becoming more and more adopted across many vendors, not only ClickHouse. And they built a powerful UI on top of ClickHouse. Unfortunately, I don't have time to show you this demo today, but it's recorded on our website and you can check. But this is really now our answer to observability use cases for organizations that don't have the resources to build their own UI and their own ingest. They just want to use something that is ready to be implemented by SREs and doesn't need developers. We decided to make it open source. We could have made it commercial, but I felt strongly that it's important to make it open source. So HyperDX UI is open source. ClickHouse, of course, is already open source, and OpenTelemetry, clearly would not be called OpenTelemetry if it wasn't open source. So this stack is available for you to use without any commercial agreement with us for observability deployments. We will, of course, provide commercial support for it, and there may be some enterprise features that we have only available to our cloud and commercial users, but the main investment in this is going to be in the open source stack. Some other investments to mention for observability. We talked about full text search, and while more and more data is becoming structured, sometimes you still have logs that are fully unstructured. ClickHouse can do full text search, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops. There are blogs on this. You can use Bloom filters and other secondary indexes to index the fields that require full text search, but it requires quite a bit of expertise, and it still can be optimized. So we are introducing an inverted index. Primarily going to be focused on log search. We're not trying to enter website search. That's not our goal. Our goal is to provide a fast experience specifically for logging users. And that's already actually in development, and in fact may even land in open source in one of our next releases. By the way, if you are not familiar with our release cycle, we release a new database version every month. Our database versions are numbered by year, month. So 25.8 is the August release of year 2025. And every month our CTO Alexei hosts a webinar for all of our users open to attend, and he will answer literally any question you ask. So if you have a question for Alexei, and he has no filter, he will answer literally any question. We don't censor him. So do come to these calls and you can interact with him. He absolutely loves it. Anyway, so inverted index is going to be available very soon for logging, search, and also for metrics. By the way, we of course use ClickHouse internally for observability. The biggest request our internal team has is native PromQL support for alerting primarily. For metrics search, there's our UI handles it well, but for alerting, they really don't want to convert all of our existing alerts that are currently in Prometheus to another language. And it's just a standard. It's a very efficient way to specify rules for metrics. So we are adding native PromQL support. This has been a project that's been in development for a little while, but finally you're going to see external versions of this probably this fall. So that's another thing to watch out for. All right, I probably should speed up so other speakers have time to share their presentations. Data warehousing, a closely related use case for observability. Also internal analytics, but no longer DevOps and SREs teams, but internal business analysts and data science teams. In this space, again, I don't have background slides, but I'll just share my perspective on it. Personally, as somebody coming from the observability world, I find it interesting that our business analytics and data science has such a different stack from observability. Both deal with big data. Why do we have completely different solutions? They all have the same architecture. At this point, everybody stores data in object stores. Everybody uses compute to process queries. Like, why do we have completely different solutions? I do think that in the long run, these stacks will start looking a lot more similar. ClickHouse, of course, can be used for data warehousing, but there are a few areas where it needs to be optimized to become a full replacement for a data warehouse. One of them is joins. ClickHouse does fully support joins, but if you have a human analyst write joins, we're not perfect. We're not going to structure it perfectly. So there needs to be an automatic optimization engine for joins. If you're, again, a developer and you're handcrafting a join, you can make it perfect. You can write it exactly how ClickHouse likes it. But human users or even agents, they're not going to do that. So we are investing in automatically optimized joins. You can hear a presentation about this from OpenHouse. We made huge improvements, and we, of course, are testing it with all the common benchmarks like TPCH. So you can see here, now that you know the version format, you know that we made progress from 24.10, which is October release of 2024, until May of 2025. You can see significant improvements. Some queries didn't even run, now they're running, and most queries are running a lot faster. And of course, beyond after that, we've added a few optimizations like global reordering that make every query possible to run and a lot faster. We're also investing in data lakes. This is an interesting topic. In North America, this is a very big topic. It's pretty much everybody is talking about data lakes. Since I've been in Japan, it's been a little bit less, but I do think it's an interesting architecture for folks to consider. This is about storing your data in an object store in an open format, like Iceberg. Iceberg is really becoming the choice for most companies that I speak with. Delta Lake is also out there, but it's considered a little bit more proprietary Databricks format. Iceberg is really an investment that we see in many places. Iceberg was developed at Netflix, so of course our customer Netflix is using Iceberg for storing a lot of their data. We are compatible with these formats, so if you have a data lake strategy and ClickHouse is your system of choice for real-time processing, great. We can query Iceberg directly. We even speed up queries on top of Iceberg beyond traditional data warehouses that have developed them, because that's our focus. For instance, we can provide materialized views on top of Iceberg data in a very efficient way. We integrate with all the major catalogs, and so you see Databricks and Snowflake. You might say, well, those are maybe competitors of yours. Sure, maybe, but we also know organizations really can't move from one technology to another fully. So we're committed to working with the ecosystem. And so with Databricks in particular, we're partners. We present at their conferences because they also realize that every technology has an edge, and in particular, our focus is very fast real-time analytics, and they want us to be compatible with Iceberg and Delta Lake. I'm probably not going to go into too much detail on these slides, but in our cloud, we provide some additional optimizations for data lakes. So for instance, distributed cache and also stateless workers are new ways to query data that are particularly useful if you have storage in one of these data lake formats. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it basically provides additional compute power to queries that don't have any state they need to store on local nodes. All right, last use case. And this use case honestly applies across all of the 3 use cases I've mentioned. First of all, AI/ML is a combination of use cases. It's more than one action that you would use a database for. Of course, there's data preparation that data scientists need to do. And ClickHouse helps with that. We have a really great testimonial from Poolside, which is a model developer for coding agents. And they talked about how they sped up their data prep process by using real-time technology like ClickHouse. Or Cognitive, they're an ad tech company that is using ClickHouse for online and offline feature storage. What are features? Features are just columns. And so, of course, a column store is going to make a great feature store. And they're actually a cloud user. They're using our cloud on 2 petabytes of feature store data to speed up developing ad tech models to stay competitive in their space. Model inference. This is a big use case, especially now that you can combine, and I'll talk about this in a minute, now that you can combine LLMs with context from other data stores. How do you combine data that's stored maybe in ClickHouse with an LLM to provide reasoning capabilities back to users? I'll show this use case in a minute because we've built this internally. Vector search, of course, that's a famous use case because more and more processes rely on embeddings data to provide analytics. And in ClickHouse, you can combine regular aggregations with vector search. So all of this is possible. Of course, there's also observability. Observability is really anywhere on the circle because every one of these use cases requires making sure that your pipelines run and that your applications perform as expected. A few announcements from OpenHouse. We have a vector similarity index that it was beta in May, and it's going to be GA very soon. We also added support for bfloat 16, which is a great way to store embeddings data more efficiently. So we invest in the vector search use case in a pretty focused way. And of course, last but not least, what I mentioned before, inference. We call this agent-facing analytics. More and more companies are starting to invest in additional automation based on AI agents. How do you accomplish this? Using a technology like ClickHouse or pretty much any other technology. And the answer is MCP, Model Context Protocol, which was announced originally by Anthropic in December 2024 and now has becoming a standard. This has really changed how agents can interact with data and gather information before they send it to LLM. Previously, the challenge was that the context window was too small to put all of this data that you wanted to provide as context to the model. And now you can really take reasoning steps before you send the data to LLM. That's really been the innovation with MCP. Upon this protocol becoming the topic of conversation, we released an MCP server that's available to all of our open source users. And of course, we made it available to our cloud users as well. If you have a cloud deployment in ClickHouse now, first of all, of course, you can interact with it yourself using a chat interface. So for instance, if you're storing real estate data in ClickHouse Cloud, you can ask it for some analysis. And with reasoning now being available, we will complete these steps for you, and you can examine at each step what's the syntax that we're running. And finally, there will be a result available to you as a user. But more importantly, we also now provide an MCP endpoint in our cloud. So you can connect any agent, your own agent, to the data. In this case, I'm showing Anthropic as an example, but it can be OpenAI, it could be any model and any UI. It could be Cursor as the UI, for instance. And so that's completely open for you to use. Again, either in open source or in cloud. In cloud, this is fully managed. As a last demo, I will show to you how we've implemented this internally. So internally, we have a data warehouse based on ClickHouse. We migrated away from BigQuery also. So we had our first Datadog in BigQuery, and then we now have ClickHouse and ClickHouse. So what we had to do in order to provide business users like myself with reasoning ability via AI agent, first of all, we had to add business context to the schema that was available in our data warehouse. And the nice thing about ClickHouse is it actually has some reserved fields where you can do that. So it was pretty simple for our data engineering and data warehousing team to add this business context to existing data in their data warehouse. Once this was added, they used the MCP server that we built. And we ended up using that interface that you saw is called Libre Chat. It's an open source chat interface that you can use. And in this case, we used Anthropic, but again, you can use other models of your choice. And the end result we were able to achieve is ability to go and ask any question of your data. This is a short demo. This is actually a public demo. We made a portion of this available in a place called Agent House. So if you search for Agent House, you can go and try this yourself. But ultimately, the experience that we've built allows any business user go and ask a question of your data, and AI really figures out for you. Well, first of all, you can ask it things like, what data do I even have access to? That helps you formulate a question. You can ask several times, for clarifications. And in the end, it can even build reports for you. There's no need for you to form the SQL yourself, but if you want to see what SQL AI formed, of course, all of these steps are available for you to check. So the workflow at this point I use to come up even with board reports is I use this myself, and then if something needs confirmation, I ask analysts to double check, but I don't have to, go and do the laborious work actually defining the queries by myself. So that's the end of the announcements from Open House. Again, I didn't have time to go into a lot of technical detail or a lot of background. Thank you so much for your attention. Hopefully for Japanese speakers, this translation was enough. I know I speak very fast and I had a lot of content to get through. Thank you so much.